This is another step forward in the effort to legalize marijuana use, recreational marijuana use in the United States, specifically in the state of Colorado and the state of Washington, which both on the state basis have allowed for the recreational use of marijuana. The federal government at this hour, the Justice Department, and more specifically the Treasury Department's Bureau of Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, are releasing guidelines to banks in those states that would allow for banks to actually provide services to marijuana businesses, to marijuana customers. This is significant because the federal government still views marijuana as an illegal substance, treats it that way, although these state laws have changed, and those businesses in Colorado, which is the only place right now where you could actually buy marijuana on a recreational basis for recreational use, those businesses have not been able to bank with anyone. They've been cash-only businesses because the federal banking laws prevent those banks from engaging them as customers. This guidance allows banks to move forward and actually sign them up as customers, but the guidance is specific as to what those banks need to do. And first and foremost, they need to do thorough due diligence on their customers. They need to know exactly who it is they're doing business with, and they need to continue filing suspicious activity reports involving any transaction involving marijuana. That's significant. That means everything they do with those businesses must be reported to the federal government, and the banks need to red flag effectively those customers that the banks suspect may be doing above and beyond what's allowed under the law in Colorado. So it puts responsibilities on the banks, but does allow them to go forward and move forward this business. There's a statement from the director of the FinCEN network with the government on this move by the federal government. Our guidance provides financial institutions with clarity on what they must do if they're going to provide financial services to marijuana businesses and what reporting will assist law enforcement. That's Jenica Shasky-Cavalry. She, again, represents the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network here in Washington. And this is a big move by the federal government and one that's been called for, again, Mark, in Colorado specifically and in Washington, because these businesses did not know where to put all that cash, and that was posing particular problems in those states. And so that's the news from the federal government, another step forward for the legal marijuana industry. They now can turn to real banks.
And Peter, this is basically a follow-up to what the Attorney General Eric Holder said during a speech last week, correct?
That's right. He'd signaled that they would be providing this guidance, and they initially provided guidance on what the federal government would do with those states back in August from a criminal standpoint, effectively saying we're going to enforce the federal laws, but really the worst offenders of the federal laws in these states, and allow the states to sort of move forward on their own here. This banking guidance is a subset of that. It's another challenge, of course, trying to harmonize the federal and state laws, which are now at odds with each other, Mark, but it is a step forward for these industries and something the governors of Colorado and Washington State had asked the federal government for. The question mark is, if you're a bank, do you take this risk? Do you engage in this business? It's not entirely clear that this guidance alone will be enough to get some banks into this business, or a lot of banks into this business. I know that the head of the Colorado Bankers Association had raised some questions about how far would this guidance go? Would it be sufficient to actually provide the safe harbor, if you will, for banks to engage in this and not worry that the federal government was looking not only in their books but over their backs as well?
And Peter, you mentioned safe harbor. One of the concerns, as I understand it, is that banks, they don't want to be, in a sense, stained by dealing with this money. Is that correct?
Well, that's a question that's going to have to be answered by the banks themselves, Mark. There are obviously going to be some financial institutions who see this business, and there's no question it's a growth business. We'll see this business as an opportunity, but there will be some banks who will worry about the reputational stain that could come with this. It's too much risk for them. And again, it's the 2 states right now that allow for the recreational use of marijuana. There are 18 additional states in the District of Columbia that allow the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes. This also affects them as well. So we're talking about more than just Colorado and Washington here, but those are the 2 states most directly affected, Colorado in particular, where this is an issue right now. A lot of those businesses were wondering what to do with their cash at the end of the day. Yeah. Some of them, whether it was mattresses or making do some other way, it was a risk because there was a lot of cash exchanging hands and no place to put it.